What is up, everybody? It's me, Dan Tom, again with the Protect Your Neck podcast. Analysts you can find over at MMAJunkie.com as well as Action Network HQ. But this here program, I guess we're going to be doing, I'm calling this, I titled this, Aaron, UFC 279 Redux, like Apocalypse Now, you know? Must feel like Apocalypse Now, especially for my co-host, Aaron Bronsteter, who is here on the ground. We had lunch together earlier, if I am allowed to disclose that, at an undisclosed location. But we're going to be doing this separate because my man has been on the ground, hitting the ground hot and running with all the craziness. What's up, Aaron? Thanks for joining me.
I'm happy to be part of the cast of your new Stanley Kubrick film, and I appreciate it. I know I don't have my nasty nature like you do, but you know we'll work with what we have. And yeah, it's been a day. It's been a long day. It's been a long couple of days here in Las Vegas. Not as long as it has been, I'm sure, for the UFC brass. One of the higher ups told me that they were awoken at about 3 a.m. and basically had to do some juggling. So yeah, not as hectic as it is for them, but still, you know, a lot of moving parts.
Yeah.
Apparently, there's still a fight that isn't done, but I don't really know if I can get into that right now. But yeah, it will be done, but it's not done.
One of the announced fights is what you're saying might not be fully signed, is what you're saying?
The paperwork's in the mail. But it looks like all three fights are going to be good to go tomorrow. Okay,
well, that's good. I imagine that isn't the craziest news given what's happened today, right? And
you know, it's all short notice and lots of negotiating and all that, and I'm sure they wanted to get at least a verbal agreement before they had their weigh-ins, right?
And face them off, sure. That makes plenty of sense. Thanks for everybody for joining in. Oh, man, I got my guy Clint in there, Diehard MMA Podcast. Shouts to Clint. I don't know if he had Paul Shag on there or not, but I'm free plug there. I'm going to go check out Clint's Undefeated show as I usually do. Dan Mack, RJ Birtles, my guy Mark Fellows. I can always count on Mark. Great Australian lad there. We got Andy G in the chat as well. We got I'll shout you guys out as we go along. I want to be respectful of Aaron's time. Basically, I'm just going to ask Aaron, just some whatever he can give us as far as his vantage points that he had or didn't have. Maybe he can just give us a little insight as far as the press conference cancellation, which kind of led to the weigh-in drama this morning. And Aaron, you were present for the scales. If there's anything you feel like sharing there. But yeah, and then we're going to do, I already did a breakdown with TB Scouting, so we're not breaking down the card here, folks. Just the 3 new matchups. I'll probably recap my total plays at the end real quick, but we won't be talking about any matchups except for the top 3, which, in case you missed it, which there are people that have, it's no longer Chimaev Diaz headlining the card. It is Diaz Ferguson 5 rounds in the main event with a 5-round co-main event featuring Kevin Holland, who had a 180 catch weight, which we'll talk about. It kind of fits with Khamzat Chimaev, who came in over today at 178.5, missing his welterweight limit. This, of course, left the odd matchup that I am seeing more people give attention to. Of course, we will here too, with Li Jingliang facing Daniel Rodriguez, D-Rod, with a 10-pound difference. Of course, D-Rod was a part of the Kevin Holland 180-pound catch weight, where Lee made weight this morning, and he is just being like Jim Miller, over at UFC 205, trying to gain weight over there to fight Thiago Alves. Obviously, Lee didn't do that, but you know what I mean. In spirit, he is the badass of this card. Aaron, did I mess up any of that? Please clean it up and add to.
No, nothing really to clean up. You're good. I mean, that's basically what went down. Those are the new 3 fights. And I actually think it's a way more competitive card than it was this morning. I think the Diaz versus, look at the lines. Diaz-Ferguson, very competitive fight. D-Rod, Li Jingliang, very competitive fight. And, of course, I think that Holland has a better chance of beating Chimaev than Diaz probably would have. But you just never know. But, yeah, those are kind of long odds, but not as long as, of course, when Chimaev was facing Diaz.
I have a weigh-ins question for you, Aaron. We'll kind of kill 2 birds with one stone, involve chat participation for questions I honestly wanted to throw your way anyways, if that's cool with you. But Mark Fellows in the chat says, biggest reaction in the past 24 hours. How does a 5'9" heavyweight miss weight? Now, we can balance repercussions. It looked like he tried to do offer to take off his shorts. I don't know if that would have made the difference. Did Barnett opt? Was he allowed extra time? I know they allowed Khamzat extra time, which made no sense for A, how much he was over from a common sense standpoint, to B, the commission's own rules. But do you remember what the Chris Barnett deal was?
They didn't give Khamzat any extra time. They asked him to stop.
Okay.
So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Barnett, I don't know. He was there, and he looked like he was in rough shape. It was strange because, like you said, he's a 5'9" heavyweight. He was 1.5 pounds over. He didn't even try to weigh in without shorts or without he had like a hairnet on of some sort. Didn't even try. It was very strange. And then he said he was going to go back and cut more, and then I guess he just decided not to because he was still there in the back, and I guess he opted just to not cut anymore. It's strange to me because, again, there's a lot to cut there. It was 267.5, right? Like, you can cut a pound and a half in an hour, no problem. But I don't know why he decided not to, but just decided not to.
Yep, yeah. And then he also, as Mark Fellows notes in the chat, he had a rough year personally with family tragedy and whatnot.
Yeah.
So, obviously we're not trying to pick on him here or anything like that. It doesn't come from a bad place. But, yeah, it's hard not to be curious. I'm a 5'9" guy myself. Who's coming down in the weight. I know it's not easy, so I hope he's okay. Andy G has a sentiment that a lot of people have. Aaron, I was curious if you had it. He says, "What an insane turn of events! But I love these matchups even more than the original ones. Let's go." Are you with that general sentiment here, Aaron?
Yeah, I am. I agree with that, and a lot of people have been saying that too. And I think it's kind of clear why. Diaz versus Ferguson is an amazing fight. I think a lot of people were saying, "Why do you have Diaz and Ferguson on the same card?" and not against each other in the same weight class? It seemed like that's a fight that makes a whole lot more sense. Of course, we know with Diaz's contract situation, they're using him as a stepping stone for Chimaev to try to elevate him. But I think ultimately we got the better main event here. If you would have done Diaz versus Ferguson for 5 rounds and Chimaev versus Blank as a co-main event, I think this card is just as intriguing from that standpoint. I think a lot of people were worried that Chimaev was just going to, destroy Diaz, and it would have been a sad night. But the sadness quotient is a lot lower now because I think that we're going to have a lot more competitive fights.
I will say...
Not to mention Jing Lang versus Tony had like a recipe for being very sad as well. So a little bit less sadness potential tomorrow night.
I agree, but again, playing this tennis game, I'll parlay my answer to Jin Karasu in the chat, who says the real winner of this UFC 279 card is Zhang Weili. I get a lot of Zhang Weili love here, Aaron. So brace yourself, my man. I know you love Zhang Weili too, so it's no big deal. But just be aware we may get some Zhang Weili questions. But Jin says that because, as was brought up last time in the chat, they actually shared coaching with their Sanda backgrounds, which makes sense. They both came from Sanda, competitive, transition to MMA. But the reasoning Jin says is because she doesn't. The real winner is of this card is Zhang Wei. She does not get to see her friend and former coach Leach fight her favorite fighter Tony. Now, I interesting take there, but I will say, kind of in reference, I agree with the general sentiment. I agree with Aaron with the wording that he used, particularly that it's lowered the depression level, but. Lee's kind of made himself into a sweetheart, and deservedly so, man. I mean, we're getting all these videos. What was the last one? He was one of the first fighters where they really enforced the flag thing, and you had that really bad, optics of the bald UFC official guy. And he even yanked like Lee's bracelet with it too. And Lee, of course, was all class. Like, can I at least have my bracelet back if you're gonna rudely rip away my the flag of my people? And he was all class about it. And then we have he gets shut down at the press conference last minute. And he's going to fight, Tony Ferguson is one of my favorite fighters, folks, so believe me, I was not looking forward to the depression, but Lee deserves that rub, This was going to be the biggest matchup of his career. Now he gets a guy who, even if he beats, he doesn't get a lot of rub off of. He's got a 10-pound disadvantage. And what people aren't mentioning is that it's a complete... he's facing the biggest, him and Holland, but arguably, but especially Leach because he's lower weight, he's facing the biggest style discrepancy where he was getting ready for a switch stance opponent, and who was aggressive, and instead he's getting a boxing southpaw who counters and fights off the back foot. It's a complete different style matchup. And Li Jingliang, I believe I did the math earlier, Aaron, 16 fights in the UFC, not one southpaw. Even going to his regional career where he fought UFC talent, like Luke Jumo, who fights Orthodox, for example. So I couldn't even reach deep to find any southpaws, Aaron. So this is a really big mystery here on how that's going to be. Since I'm kind of breaking down the fight, again, we're going to keep this short and sweet anyways, folks. So why not dive into it now as we work our way through the chat? But just the only one of three matchups here. I am again, go to my main card quick picks and prognostications. I'm having to make some quick picks here, kind of offhand. I tried to get some studying in and refreshing because you got to. Yeah, I'm familiar with these fighters, but you have to look at it from a completely different perspective now. I'm actually leaning D-Rod here by a decision that's going to be depressing as a Lee fan, and he could be one of the first people to stop Li Jingliang. They both are susceptible to slow starts, so maybe that saves them both from any potential finishes. But yeah, I'm leaning D-Rod. Do you have any leanings? I hate to put you on the spot, Aaron. I know you're covering this week and your head's other places.
Well, yeah, I haven't had a chance to really let these matchups marinate in my brain.
No pressure. No pressure if you don't.
The first thing that Daniel Rodriguez said to me, I asked him, I go, like, were you worried you weren't going to have a fight? And, like, how happy are you that Li Jingliang, despite the 10-pound discrepancy, accepted the fight? And said, the first thing I did when I got to the arena was find Li Jingliang and give him a big hug and say thank you very much. Like, the respect level is very high between these two.
Love it.
But like you said, an interesting stylistic dichotomy between the two of these guys, because you've got Rodriguez, who is more of a reactive fighter, and Li Jingliang's kind of a reactive fighter too, right? But both of them were going to be facing proactive fighters. So it's going to be interesting to see whether that cancels itself out. I think this is just a really close fight, to be honest. I think the money is coming in on Rodriguez just because of the 10 pounds. Like, it's rare that you go into a fight knowing that somebody's going to have a 10-pound advantage over somebody. Rodriguez said he doesn't think it's a big deal. He says he's going to be in the 80s tomorrow. Jingliang probably will be too. But still, Jingliang had to deplete himself to get there, whereas Rodriguez probably didn't have to do much to get to 180 pounds. So I think that's why the line is what it is. I think it's probably closer to an even money fight. So it just depends on how much of a factor you think that's going to be if you're going to make a pick. I would probably just pass altogether. In fact, on all three of these, I'm leaning towards passing. But just from the perspective of a matchup, I think Lee has some advantages in this fight. But like you mentioned, the lack of southpaw competition could really be troublesome for him. So I can see why the line is what it is. If I was going to just make a pick, I'd probably take D-Rod too.
Yeah, absolutely. I probably will end up staying away from this one. I love the Leech, and it's funny. It's like the matchup shifted, Aaron, but and you know what? Spoiler alert. I am picking people that I initially a majority of these new matchups. I am picking people that I initially picked against. But even that being said, here with these matchups, it's so. Sorry, you got a dog over here just raising havoc. But yeah, spoiler alert. I'm changing my picks up on a lot of these matchups, and part of the reason is, and again, you can't bank too heavily, which is why you got to pass here. But a lot of these I look for certain intangibles, right? Because some fighters need a lot of prep, and they don't like things being changed up last minute. Like, I would not like to admit it, but I'd probably be somebody who would hate having things changed up last minute. I would be more on the side of like, all right, I'm if it was something like serious, that is, like I have and will and am fighting through injuries or this or that's fine. I'm talking about like legitimate stuff like what's going on this week with these fighters. But some fighters kind of just have that attitude of just like they're okay in the chaos. They maybe even do better short notice, right? Or not having the camp and the time to think about it. You know what I'm saying? Like like a Cowboy Cerrone probably would do better in a shuffle than he would having to prepare for a title fight, for example, right? And for this matchup, D-Rod's one of those dudes who, I remember, was it Joe Schilling was saying before he went out to fight Tim Means and he scored that big upset. Joe Schilling was giving him all the fighter talk that he gives normal fighters, and D-Rod was just like, yo, man, I'm good. I've been to jail. Like, I fought in there. Like, this is nothing. And you see that even a lot of the analysis that doesn't make this wild woo-woo correlation that I'm making will make the same correlation that he's composed. He is eerily composed. His heartbeat does not go up in these fights, and I like a guy like that. I like more of a streetwise guy like that. You know what I'm saying? I think we put a lot of stock into the thug and this and that, but like, I don't know, man. There's some of that, and D-Rod is a real guy because he doesn't talk a lot. Like we'll get to Chimaev here, but yeah, I'm leaning D-Rod.
Let me give you one prop
Go ahead.
that is of interest to me for this one. Jingliang scorecards equal no action is even money. I think if you believe Jingliang's best path is to get a finish here, that's worth a flyer, because I think that like you said, it probably goes to a decision, and if it does, that's probably going to be Rodriguez who gets it. But Li Jingliang is a pretty potent finisher, and if he is able to find a finish, I think that might be the one kind of angle I would consider. But again, these are all new odds, so just throwing it out there.
Right, and all this analysis correlates to other matchups. It's hard to talk without getting into other matchups, but I don't like it as much because even though I was initially picking for D-Rod to be finished, it was in the first round because he gets hurt in that first round. But now he's going against another slow starter, so that kind of scares me off of that. But I don't hate where your head's at. There was a lot of love, I was saying, Aaron, with Lee backstage. We saw that nice moment with Tony. He was helping him not trip. RJ Bertle asks here, did you see...
Yeah, he was helping him not trip over my equipment.
Was that your equipment?
So I apologize to Tony for that.
Oh my God. Lee's such
I'll tell you the backstory. So
okay.
I actually had set up my light, and I was with the UFC PR team, and I set up my light, and I had it on like the right side of the podium, which is where the fighters come from. I said, as soon as Lee has done his interview, he was doing an interview with I believe it was the Chinese rights holder. I'll switch it over. I'll move it over to that side. And they were like, yeah, I don't know. They were like, it's Tachi's thing with Tony. And I was like, yeah, no, I understand. I go, okay, I'll move it over now. I'll just try not to interrupt their interview. I'll pull the power bar. Hopefully it doesn't distract the guy who's doing it. So I actually went out of my way to like quietly move it over to the other power bar, and he still tripped over it. After like we had the foresight of trying to make sure that I needed it for my light. My battery ran out, so I needed to have it plugged in. We had the foresight to try to eliminate that from happening and like make it not happen. And like, afterwards, after I interviewed Tony, I was like, hey man, I'm really sorry about that. Like, watch out for the wires. And Tony gave me a hug. He's like, listen, man, don't worry about it. Nice to see you. Like Tony was very cool about it. So, it was my equipment, sadly, that he tripped over. But the reason why he tripped is because he was in a hurry to get over to Li Jingliang to like give him props and give him a hug and kind of have a warm moment with him.
Oh, that's nice. And that brings me to the next question. RJ Bertle said, did you see Tony offer Nate a mint backstage, Aaron?
I saw him talking to him. This was yesterday. He was talking to Tony, and they were hanging out. And I saw Tony go put something, extend his hand with something, but Nate, I don't think Nate took it or whatever. But it was like when I was with Okamoto, and Okamoto has like a 2-year-old son with him. And I said, your son a candy? I had like candy in my bag. And he was like, yeah, it's chewy. Like, I was like, yeah, it's a gummy. And I Okamoto's kid, and he took it and threw it on the ground.
Oh,
wasn't having it.
High standards. High standards.
Cherry blasters. You guys have cherry blasters in the U.S.?
Cherry blasters? No, I'm not familiar with that. I'm not the best person to ask, but that doesn't sound familiar. Definitely not from my childhood.
Cherry blasters.
Okay. I'll have to find cherry blasters. Ghost Phantom, Dan and Aaron, all-star duo. Appreciate that. One of my favorite duos here. I'm glad Aaron was able to join me. All right, we had Dan Mack. So what we got, Nate, shot via smash, D-Rod TKO. Is that your picks? All right. I'm going to move on to the next fight here to push on, Aaron. We'll go co-main event. We'll work our way to the main event. Why not go in order, right? There's got to be some kind of order on this show. I got FanDuel's odds here pulled up. For Khamzat Chimaev, we got him at minus 520 at FanDuel. Kevin Holland plus 350. It's opened a bit wider. Money's coming in on Holland. Do you have any thoughts on this one, or is this another one you're still kind of marinating on, Aaron?
Well, I asked Kevin Holland backstage today. I said, are you happy that it's a 5-round fight? He goes, I asked for it to be 5 rounds. I go, the guy's having weight-cutting complications. I want to test him. I want to test his gas tank. I want to see if he can go 5 rounds. If he's going to try to wrestle me, he's going to have to be more economical, with his gas tank over the course of 5 rounds. And I think Kevin Holland's right. I think the 5 rounds actually really plays to the advantage of Kevin Holland, even though he wasn't the one training for a 5-round fight, whereas Chimaev was. But if Chimaev was having issues where, with the weight cut, which it seemed like he had a pretty bad issue with it early on in the cut, I think Holland's on the right page there. That being said, stylistically, I think it's a bit of a problem for Kevin Holland, because we've seen when wrestling-based fighters take him down that he has not been very good at getting back up. And I know he's been working a lot in Hendrick's with Johnny Hendricks, but against a guy like Chimaev, who's been a high-level competitive wrestler, I'm not sure if that's going to be enough. Now, that being said, there's some real animosity here. Can Holland bait Chimaev into keeping it on the feet? And if that's the case, I think it's really anyone's ball game, because we saw that Chimaev gets hit. We saw him get hit against Burns. And Holland is a really, really good precision striker. So that's where I think it gets a little dicey. Another one where I'm not super comfortable making a pick. I mean, I have to look at some of the props as they come out. The Holland, like round 3, round 4, round 5 props are out, and they're like pretty high, like 30-1 kind of deal. So if you're going to get it in that kind of area code, maybe you just take a sprinkle on that. But I don't have a strong opinion. I'm curious what a Chimaev decision would pay, because of that to me is, like Holland isn't the guy that gets, stopped very often, right? So,
well, I was looking at
that goes. Chimaev's decision is plus 300, but over 5 rounds, I'm not sure there's much value to be extracted there either.
Yeah, let me see if I can pull up. Let's see what we got here for lines. Yeah, this is a funny one where, Aaron, tell me if you forgive me here. I know I got a lot of crap. I will back a big underdog. I took Tai Tuivasa.
Can I cut you off, by the way? The fight that wasn't done was Chimaev and Holland. It's a done deal now.
That made sense.
That
would have been my guess.
I just retweeted. His manager sent me a note that it's that he got his bags on bags on bags, as Kevin Holland is doing a victory dance right now on that on this on Twitter. So good for him, man. I think that Kevin Holland is getting what he deserves here, because this is a tough fight to take on short notice.
Absolutely is. Tell me if you forgive me, Aaron. I took Tai Tuivasa last week. I got a lot of shit for it, right? Picking him. And usually I will pick the same side as I bet. Not that it's any crap to not, but the point is, I'm not one to really feather my nest. You know me, it's not my style. That being said, would you forgive me for picking Chimaev here? Because I think most likely it's going to be round 2. He's got to reproduce what's his name, Brendan Allen did, which Brendan Allen got him out of there in round 2. Kevin Holland will turtle and give that. Meerschaert and Holland were guillotining each other every time they both turtled, as they both tend to do. So we had a bunch of fun scrambles. You could have argued GM3 won that fight, by the way. One of the many fights you could have argued GM3 won. Yeah. Shouts to GM3. But yeah, there is that, and Chimaev round 2 plus 450 is probably the smart thing, and that's probably what I should be writing about, since that's going to be my pick for the prop squad, because that is out the window, right? But why did I pick Holland round 1 against a guy in Rodriguez who's never been finished? Back to our previous breakdown on that. If you're just tuning in, folks, thank you. Be sure to like the video below, subscribe. You can follow Aaron at Aaron Bronsteter. That's what his name tag you guys can see on your screen. Follow all his stuff. The TSN MMA show is fantastic. But yeah, back to
Aaron.report has all my links. Aaron.report.
There we go. And so, you think it would be easy for me just to make that case. And by the way, you could sprinkle on that accordingly. But what Aaron was saying was kind of what I did. Maybe I'm getting off, all the excitement of that we're all having. But, follow me here, folks. Again, just is it that crazy for a heavyweight dog to cash? Folks, how many times have we seen a young fighter built and pushed up by the promotion almost irresponsibly, both for their career growth and what they encourage, to the point where they're getting in trouble outside of the octagon, but yet they're only rewarded with more opportunities? You're telling me those stars always have safe landings with no drama, right? Because that's how the story goes, right? Wait, no, that's not how the story goes. The story goes like how we see it. You see instances, they're young, this was an instance, they're fighters, it's fight week. And after, months and months and years, and same instances of the same and I'm not trying to be cancel culture or hold these fighters to some unfair standard outside the cage. I'm not trying to do that here, but I'm being real here. We got to analyze things from a betting perspective to this audience, right? How many times have we seen this story happen before? Inflated odds, all that stuff. For me, it's more of just a simple fade on that. I mean, even when Chimaev did make weight, we saw him put down that pack in round 2, which is why I said Nate Diaz his most lively round will be round 2, even though I was picking and playing Chimaev mainly, right? So in this case, Holland, again, I'm actually going to be sprinkling. I sprinkled him rounds 2, 3, and 4 for load up the clip. That's right, 0.17U, plus 2,000 odds, plus 2,500 odds, and plus 3,000 odds. So you're collecting multiple units of just one of those hits, and you cover your losses. I also, in full disclosure, you don't have to do this. This is where I maybe got excited. You could probably just leave it at that. Because, again, even if he rocks Chimaev, I think Chimaev gets a takedown and is able to wrestle round one and survive it, right? But that frantic of either having to survive because he's hurt or one-way traffic because he's an aggressive starter, now he's only going to be even more mad. He's the kind of guy, you tell him you can't lift something, he'll go lift it 10 times just to prove it, right? And now with the crowd booing him, everyone booing him, missing weight, all his talk, him being exposed, the guy he's fighting is the one exposing his game, going, dude, this guy's shaking hands, he's not a real gangster. He's not like the D-Rods like we were talking about, the real MFers, you know what I'm saying? Like, he's just doing it for the cameras. Like, listen, man, I'm all about technical breakdowns and this and that's why you come here, but sometimes it just doesn't matter about that. Sometimes it's just sometimes it is the numbers. Sometimes it is the value. Sometimes it is those beats that you're looking for, right? Sometimes it is those fades to the definition of what we're always trying to look for. I'm not saying you're going to lose money if you fade a guy like Chimaev. I'm not saying bet the bank against him. Again, I'm still going to pick this guy to win probably in the second round, plus 450, by the way, folks. I'm not trying to sell you here. I'm just saying that, I don't know. I'll toss it over to Aaron to call me crazy or not. But, I'm just saying that there's value. You don't have to expose a lot to have action on a fight. And those round props are a fun way to have action on a fight without having a ton of exposure to it because it is volatile at the end of the day. So I took Holland at half a unit plus 475. I think I caught it on the way down. And then I just did the three round sprinkles, 2, 3, and 4. In total, that's only a unit exposure. Keep in mind, as I imagine a lot of you guys, your plays is being refunded. So I'm just trying to keep interest on this godforsaken card. So Aaron, am I crazy with that logic there? Am I a hypocrite?
Logic is it pretzel logic like Steely Dan? No, it sounds good to me. I think that you're looking at it the right way. You don't want to be overexposed on a fight like this. And really, all three of these fights are very volatile fights. Mm-hmm. You know me, I always try to avoid volatility when I can. Somebody sent me a message today like, "Oh, you take Ferguson or Diaz?" I said, "It's just a pass for me. Like, I haven't had a lot of time to look at the fight. Neither of these guys. It's volatile. Like, if you're going to invest, look at the matchups earlier in the card and then go from there. I mean, earlier in the week you could have gotten Norma Dumont for minus 290. I thought that was really good value. But if you look through the card, you can find much better spots than these three fights. Like, those other lines have been sitting around for a long time. Unless, like you did, you kind of rode the wave. You waited for a good number on Holland and took it there. That's another way to do it. You just watch where the action goes, because I think in the next 24 hours, it's going to be bouncing around like a yo-yo. If you watch the stock market like their stocks, you might be able to grab a good line at some point in time. But right now, I think that it's just volatility city.
I agree. I'm learning how to do this stuff on the fly, but Die Hard MMA Podcast said, nice to see you, Aaron. And RJ Bertle says, saw your interview, Aaron, with what are your thoughts on Leach from a personality standpoint?
Oh, he's amazing. Like, I got in there to interview him, and he just put his arm around me. He was having a blast. He looked like he was really having a fun time. And, his translator was really good, too. But, he wasn't as good as our friend Fabiano, of course, who was the greatest translator. I had a great time with Leach. I think that was my favorite interview that I did today.
Wow, cool, man. I'm gonna go back and check that one out for sure.
There's a translator involved, but he complimented my suit, so maybe that's why. That's nice. Always an easy way to my heart.
Hey, man. I mean, dude, that the suit king of the week is complimenting your suit. That means something right there. That ain't nothing.
Yes, sir.
All right, Lance Cameron, how we doing, boys? I got my guy Alvin Yakitori. He's super positive. I got to give Alvin a shout here. Hello, everyone. What another fantastic day to talk about fights. Let's all respect each other and enjoy each other's company. I think Alvin would get along with Leach, as far as that attitude, right? Because Leach is all about that, man. I love it. I love the outward personality, whether it be language barrier, cultural things, however you want to cut it. I just love seeing, just someone with that infectious personality like that, and to break through those lines. It's a beautiful thing.
You're going to like something I did, by the way, this week. And I haven't really shared this with anybody else, but I'll give you a bit of a sneak preview of what is to come. I brought a disposable camera with me to take kind of behind-the-scenes shots with kind of an old-school look to them. So I've been getting I got some great pictures of Leach, of Kevin Holland, just cool behind the scenes stuff that people aren't used to seeing. But it's going to look like the pictures are from the 90s.
Love it. I love that. Oh.
I'll be getting those up once I get them developed, they're going to develop them, and I'm going to get digital prints as well as physical prints. And I'm just excited to share them because I love the idea. But it's weird looking at a camera being like, oh God, I only have like 12 shots left. Like, and having to wind the camera after each picture.
I love it.
It feels like I'm going into a time machine.
It's nostalgic. I was just gonna say that. Like, I want to do it myself. You're saying that. That sounds so awesome. I really think that's an awesome idea, man. I really look forward to that. And everybody on this channel knows I'm a big 90s fan. 90s squad in the house, as well as Magnum squad, who I was shouting here in the chat. Shouts to the Magnum squad. Yeah, man. What do we got? We got Lightmare Sworn says, Li Jingliang has really grown on me this week. Such a wholesome guy. Hope he gets some love from the fans. I hope so too, man. I hope he got some type of pay bump too for all this, man. I mean, they got to really, I hope they're taking care of him. Again, folks, let's not forget, to shout out my guy John Stoden, let's not forget the fighters are the protagonists here ultimately. They are the ones that are just putting all this on their literal backs for our entertainment. So let's respect that, like what Alvin said. But Aaron, you said it, and someone else did say this. One thing I will note, though, as far as giving the UFC credit, massive credit to their media department, their PR department. Everybody that's having to burn that proverbial midnight oil to do all the promos and stuff that we all get to watch for these things. We take all those things for granted on a regular basis already. And the fact that these people have to do it twice in a crazy time span, I absolutely have sympathy for them. I absolutely have sympathy for those people. Yeah.
And shout out to the security team. The security team did a great job yesterday.
Yeah, nice.
Shout out to them.
Yeah.
Unsung heroes.
Yeah, I was hearing such crazy in my jiu-jitsu class. It was like, as I went to jiu-jitsu after I recorded my podcast, right? And it was just like, did you hear? I heard Nate swung a stanchion. I heard there was a gun. I heard Chris Avila knocked out Darren Till, which is my favorite rumor, by the way. Chris Avila knocking out a fat Darren Till was just an amazing.
I think that came up because a fake Brett Okamoto account said that Chris Avila was ripping the monarchy. It was like a fake tweet. But and that Darren Till took exception and Chris Avila knocked him out. I think that's where that rumor started. But it was just a fake account that was like making the fake Brett Okamoto account was coming up with all kinds of wacky stuff and saying that like these situations were happening that of course didn't actually happen. But sometimes truth is stranger than fiction.
Yeah, I don't know. The guy was one of the guys spreading some information on the mats. Had a Gracie tattoo. Looked at from out of town. Looked like he was part of the Diaz crew. Good grappler. Got to go with him. But yeah, you never know what's true on the mats, man. You don't know, man. Those jiu-jitsu mats, man. But yeah, I'm gonna pull down here. But yeah, that's where I'm at as far as that. You don't gotta follow me again. If you're on the Chimaev side, that's who I'm picking. Plus 425 round 2 is not bad, even though I just been saying, on all my breakdowns, how he can put down the pack in round 2 if he doesn't get that finish. It's going to be real interesting times that 5 round. I agree with what Aaron said and as far as what Kevin said, that the 5 rounds benefits him. All right, let's jump to the last fight here, and then we'll get out of here, Aaron. I appreciate your time, sir. FanDuel Odds has the newly minted main event between Nate Diaz, who opened as the favorite, but you can now find him it's really close over there at FanDuel. He's still an underdog, plus 102 from the line flip, originally opened as a favorite, Nate Diaz. And, of course, Tony Ferguson, your newly minted favorite, minus 130. Me and Aaron were talking full disclosure, and I wasn't sure if it was going to get there with the Diaz popularity. I thought we were going to keep some Tony dog odds. Aaron, were you surprised with the flip? And do you have a favorite in your mind? Maybe not a pick, but a favorite who should be in your mind?
Yeah, it's funny. It went the other way. We were talking about how maybe it'll get up to like Diaz minus 155, minus 175 range, and instead money came in on Tony, which is to me is kind of surprising because Tony has not had success for quite some time. I mean, that first round against Chandler, he showed that he still has it, but at the same time, Diaz is 1-3 in the last 6 years. And so like, there's just both these guys are seemingly on a downward trajectory. I don't really know what to make of it, but you brought up a great point in terms of Ferguson having not faced a whole lot of southpaws, right? So again, where you have to be able to do this kind of research on the fly, and it's tough. So I would say that I think Diaz is probably the side here. I mean, this is the motivation for Diaz probably has to be pretty high in this situation because he has the chance to go out on a much bigger chance of going out on a win here against a guy who's still really, I think is still really talented in Tony Ferguson. But the Diaz side might be the side that at these odds, like I said to you, if Ferguson gets like plus 140, plus 145, that's probably around the range I'd feel comfortable taking Tony. But at these odds, like I thought Diaz was going to go up, not down. So I think Diaz as an underdog is probably the right side. But again, it's new matchmaking. There's a whole lot of different circumstances going into it. It's going to be a fun fight though. Like this is a fight I'm looking forward to way more than Nate versus Chimaev. Am I wrong on that?
You're not wrong on that. No, not at all. Not at all. Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely, man. We've got the new age Tito Ortiz, as I like to say on this podcast. I wonder if Nate's going to have any interesting on what was limiting his sparring this time around. Just kidding. I love Nate. Antonio Ferguson, of course, is your favorite Mexican uncle at the barbecue who wants to show you his knife tricks after he's had one too many. We've all had those uncles. Yes, it does. It's culturally, I think we all have that version. But Tony, I love both these guys. That being said, you guys know that it's all fun and jokes here. I actually agree with what Aaron said. It's crazy. Tell me if you think I'm crazy here. I don't want to sound like Dana White, Aaron, but did Nate Diaz not look huge when they in comparison to Tony Ferguson?
He looked bigger than Luke Thomas.
He looked giant. Huge. He looked massive. He looked massive. But yeah, it was, I was looking at that and the fact that like Nate has been fighting bigger guys for longer. People forget that Tony fought at welterweight. I actually went back to watch to see what his body looked like in that Ramsey Najim fight because he was coming off of the Ultimate Fighter fighting above his weight class like most do, right? And to Tony's credit, like he said, he had a lot of knockouts and that's what he kind of came on the scene doing. And of course, I've stated this in prior breakdowns before. And so for that reason, it's like, yeah, the more variety Nate Diaz just penchant to cut, he should be the more effective guy on the feet, maybe the more impactful fighter, the more damaging fighter, Aaron, right? Even if these are close rounds, these are things you can kind of think of, as far as what the fighters have a propensity to do and how that plays within the criteria. But I will say this, Nate Diaz, again, in previous breakdowns, his striking, you could argue, has regressed, which is not a slight. That happens as you get older, right, toward the end of your stages of your career, later stages. And I actually, I've been talking about how he's been going into the clinch, and real deceptive there, knees and elbows even, dropping Pettis with some knees multiple times. He's been kind of like, a quiet clinch fighter. Now, if you're a really good wrestler, he gives his weapons play into that. I talked about the shuck buys and his propensity to turtle once you get down there. But here's the thing. Tony Ferguson may have been a 3-time state placer in high school, Aaron. He may have been a Grand Valley State 2-time All-American. But he shot absolutely 0 takedowns in the last 7 years and 6 fights. 0 takedown attempts. And I don't know if it's there. You see wrestlers later in their career tend to go away from the takedowns, whether it's back, whether it's knees. I went back to watch the Tony Ferguson 3-2 against UFC level southpaws. And that Dariush fight, his striking did kind of look like it started to get better, but you have to keep in mind we only get about a minute and about a minute 30 of it in the first round and a minute of it in each round before it's just ground control by Dariush. So you don't see it too much, but it doesn't look, the most impressive, as opposed to when it did against RDA, one of his best southpaw performances where he was jabbing. Something, I talk about, I know Connor Rebush from Heavy Hands talks about, being able to still jab with the southpaw. Reason why I like Robert Whitaker, right? Because he still jabs with southpaws. So there's definitely going to be those things there for Tony, but these are old tools for Tony, right? These are old looks for Tony. It's an older Tony that we're talking about that we've been waiting to see. And, maybe he ran the well dry with that crazy style of attrition that he had. And I may sound like I'm speaking in circles here, folks, but what I'm basically saying is I think Nate Diaz pushes into the clinch and out-grapples him. And if he can avoid getting a doctor's stoppage, because, I know Tony Ferguson will throw elbows from the bottom, but Nate, even though Tony Ferguson likes the guard, Nate Diaz doesn't like the guard. He's not a lay and pray guy. He will transition, he'll scramble till he gets the back or a position he can hold, right? And if he gets the back, Tony Ferguson's not going to be able to elbow him and cut him. So in other words, I'm actually looking at Nate Diaz by decision plus 350 would be the only way I would bet this fight. I may not, because like Aaron's point, this is super volatile. But if you're going to get plus money on
these odds, I just right. There's even looking at the props, there's just no value really to be extracted unless you like the around 5 flyer on either of these guys. But even still, I don't know. like Nate seems to do really well later in fights if they get there, but at the same time, like we don't really have any evidence that Tony Ferguson doesn't, So again, volatility, not really sure what to make of it. It's really hard to pick fights like these. And I know this is kind of might be a boring broadcast for people here because we're just talking about how like these are new lines. They're kind of there's a lot of volatility. They're changing a lot.
Yeah.
Again, keep watching them. Like if you are really keen on taking a side in these fights, the odds have been pretty fluid. So watch them, see what they're at tomorrow. Tomorrow, I'd imagine, because like you said, a lot of refunds are going to be coming in for people. I think a lot of people are going to be putting together new parlays. I wouldn't be surprised to see Chimaev shoot up to like minus 800, minus 900 by fight time, just because people are looking for that parlay piece. So if you like Holland, like you do, like to as a sprinkle, you think he's got a good shot, like you might be able to get him in the plus 500, plus 550 range tomorrow. You just don't know. So that's the thing, again. That's where you're at. You kind of keep your eyes open and see where these lines go, because if Lee and Rodriguez kind of evens out, then maybe Rodriguez has some value. But if he starts going to minus 275, then the other side might have some values. I'm not saying anything people don't already know here, but that's the part of the game that we have to just kind of monitor when you have new odds like this that just come out and the fight's in 24 hours.
Yep. Yeah, no, I agree. But I will say, not even just because of the odds, my pick will probably be Nate for what it's worth, even if he was a slight favorite. Make of that what you will, but don't put too much money on any of these, man. Be responsible, folks. Got a question before you can bow at any time you want, Aaron. But Ghost Phantom, Dan and Aaron, technical question: how big of a factor is Tony's front kicks versus Nate? Bazooka Joe always talks about front kicks versus punches. Interesting, no? You want to lead this one off as far as the Bazooka Joe part, who is a regular co-host of you or the TSN MMA show?
If you're looking for technical expertise, I'm going to put it into your court, Dan, because I don't think that I am qualified to answer that question.
Well, I feel I want to slap myself on the wrist for not being up to date on Bazooka Joe's videos myself, because it doesn't matter if you host a podcast with him or not, like Aaron does. We all should be brushing up on our technique with somebody as educated and astute as Bazooka Joe Valtellini. Shouts to him. As far as from my limited information, I'm not as good as Bazooka Joe to answer this question, but I'll do my best. I think the kicks are going to be great. This is great for Tony, because Tony is kickable himself. His legs got hurt from submissions as well, granted, and leg kicks from Dariush. But he doesn't have to worry about that with Nate. Tony will have that advantage. He does like the front kick. But yeah, it's more of the angles and lines Tony's coming. Is he coming straight on, or is he kind of chasing from a side angle? Where the straight punches and counters will be harder for Nate, because even though the leg is longer than the arm in theory, Nate knows how to counter and time you as well. So there's that. That's the best answer I can give for that. Also, Aaron, if you don't mind. Ghost Phantom says, also, 2 years ago, I used to troll Aaron without any, so I'd like to take the time to apologize and say that he does great work. Look at that.
I'm glad you come around.
Look at that.
You're a smart man.
Look at that. I appreciate that.
But you're lucky, because back then I used to just mute people if they trolled me. Now I block them. So you still have access to my wonderful content, whereas a lot of people don't.
There we go. Hey, you know what? I love I love anybody that can admit they're wrong. Maybe we need a better thing that it takes a man, because it's a really good human being quality. But yeah, it takes a good person to admit when they're wrong. So massive props, man.
They should do PSAs on trolling where they really shame people who do it. Like a commercial that's like, do you have a lot of sadness in your life?
Yeah.
And you don't know where to put it. Trolling people is not the answer.
Absolutely. So yeah, and everyone else follow Ghost's example there. Better yourselves.
Yes.
And
shout out to Ghost.
Yes. PJ Mans, there is always time for Zhang Wei Li love. Yes, there is. All right, Mark Fellows, DT, after 5 years, it's time for Australian fans to forgive and forget the leech for eye gouging Jake Matthews. I don't let go of grudges that easy. You are Australian, Mark Fellows. But I did see people saying they forgive him for the eye gouge. Hey, man, yeah, if Jake Matthews forgives him, I think we can all forgive him.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't remember until you brought it up, but I'm also Canadian, and had he done it to like a Canadian, I probably would have remembered.
Yes, of course. What do you, James Kendrick? What are your thoughts on the UFC benefiting through all this chaos, despite how they handled it, how unprofessional they handled it? His words, not mine. I mean, I'll answer first, I guess. I just think that, like, again, this is why I paid props to the fighters, and I'm hoping that the UFC is taking care of the fighters, because they're the real heroes here that step up so the UFC, can save face and look good and provide us with entertainment. And so it's okay to be grateful for the UFC, but remember where they source their material and who we ultimately should be grateful for, and that is the fighters. Again, I'll just send them at that to thank them. But Aaron, anything as far as how the UFC was able to parlay this? I know there's a lot of praise being as well given to the UFC, Hunter Campbell and others for facilitating this. Anything to add to that as far as how everything came together?
Well, yeah, I mean, it seems like they opened the checkbook a little bit to make this happen, and they had to basically rework contracts with a bunch of the different fighters. So it's not easy to do this kind of thing, like these guys have to adjust on the fly, and all the fighters, to their credit, they all accepted these fights.
Yeah.
Even though, like we're talking about, they're volatile. They didn't prepare for these. They've been doing all these long camps. Li Jinglang's giving up 10 pounds. Like there's a lot of things that make it. That make something like this work, that make the machine work. So ultimately, it's a credit to everybody for being reasonable, I guess. I mean, or being accommodating, I guess is probably an even better word on everybody's part. So,
yeah.
I mean, shout out to them. I'm not thrilled. The one thing that kind of rubs me the wrong way is, like, I don't know what Chimaev's getting paid for this. I'm thinking he probably lost pay-per-view points, which is probably punishment enough. But how brazenly he walked onto the stage today when he weighed in. Like, if you didn't know that he was having issues cutting weight prior to that, like if they hadn't talked about it on the UFC weigh-in show, you would have thought he was going to make weight no problem. He walked up with full confidence, was smiling, and it was just weird. It was weird that he was so brazen about it, but I guess we'll see where his career goes from here.
And I don't want to do a apples for apples because, I do believe at least Dana did say to Oliveira that we know, who the real champ is, or that you made weight. But you compare that, like how much that cost Oliveira for a legitimate miss compared to just that nonchalantness, just the casual weight miss, the repercussions. It's tough seeing what fighters go through. Brad Tazchuk, I don't expect much of a size discrepancy here. D-Rod didn't get bigger for this fight. He just didn't get into as good shape as he normally would. Yeah, I that was weird from both accounts, Aaron, right? Both fighters were denying that they asked for it. I know Holland was of the mind that D-Rod needed it because of a hand injury, whereas D-Rod said, my hand's been good. I didn't ask for this weight. And I know that's been feeding into a lot of tinfoil hat conspiracy theories. Did you catch any of that as well? Like on why that was even made a catch weight in the first place? Or was it just the short notice of it?
For the Rodriguez and
Holland original booking.
Fight? Yeah, Rodriguez asked for it to be at 180. It was short notice, and he just thought that it would be easier on the both of them, I think. And the Aldana and Chason catch weight apparently was on the Chason side. Asked if it would be. This is actually a good story. Asked if it would be okay to do it at 140. And even though Aldana would have benefited from saying no and making the weight and making her suffer, because Aldana had missed weight in the past, she felt that, like she felt for her opponent. Because we have a lot of women's weight cuts are based on, like, they can go south quickly due to their monthly cycle. So I think that Aldana had, like, some sympathy for whatever Chason was going through, and just, like, accepted it and, like, didn't take part of her purse. So shout out to Irene Aldana.
Absolutely. Krumbopolis Rosen. I don't know if it's a fellow tribesman there, but this one is for Aaron. What are the stories if Tony and Leach get a win this week?
What are the stories?
Yeah, what are the stories if Tony and Leach get a win this week?
Ferguson defeats Diaz. I'm just joking. Yeah, I mean, I think that it would be a good story for Ferguson to get a bounce back, and I think this is a good position for him to get a bounce back. He's been facing such tough competition, strong strength of schedule for years. So I think that's kind of the story with Tony. And if Li Jingliang gets a win, I mean, it just elevates him. He took a fight with a 10-pound discrepancy. I think he'll look really good if he ends up getting a win over a really game opponent in D-Rod. But I don't think it's anything like folklore or anything like that. I think people forget about it once we start moving forward into events. But I'm really just curious to see how Tony looks. I think this is a fight where we're really going to see what Tony has left, because I think this is going to go long. And we're going to get to really see both of these guys, Diaz and Ferguson, what they still have in terms of their futures, because I think that this is going to be a fight where they can showcase what they still have left.
Yep. I agree. I'm going to consolidate like 3 questions into one, Aaron, because the Team Magnum crew will not let you leave here before answering a question about Zhang Weili. But Sammy Arnett wanted to know if you were excited to see Zhang Weili get her belt back, as he says, at UFC 281, and Jumbo Sang pretty much was curious if you think she's going to be a breakout star. Has that potential. Aaron, the floor is
She's
yours.
already been a breakout star. You can't be a breakout star again. I mean, she was the epitome of a breakout star. If you look at how quickly she ascended to the title, everybody was like, "Oh, they're just giving her the shot against Andrade because it's in China, and they're just trying to like satiate the marketplace." Nope, she dismantled Andrade. And I think that was kind of her breakout moment. I don't think she's going to break out again. I think we know what Zhang Weili is at this point. I mean, yeah, she's the deserved top contender right now for Esparza, and I don't know if it was hard to put it together. I had heard that Esparza was kind of trying to hold off on it for a bit, but now that it's put together, I don't know what the odds are offhand, but I'm guessing Zhang is probably like a minus 275 favorite, right? Like, I think the expectation is that she wins it back.
Yep. I think that the expectation is too, and great point about the breakout star. Wes Colvin in the chat, true UK fan. I want my Garage Man shirt, you pricks. Aaron, you can't bother Aaron for it. You only can thank Aaron for it. I am holding the Garage Man T-shirt. So
I should have brought it back to Canada and mailed it to you, because at least
it's all right. It'll encourage them on their next Vegas trip.
To a small town, and mailing stuff to small towns in Canada costs a fortune. So I'm not sorry. But yeah, Zhang's minus 375 in some spots, so she's a really big favorite. Wow. Okay.
Yep. All right. I'm gonna try to scroll through here to see if there's anything to you specifically, Aaron, or for these fights. Apologies if I'm not getting to it. If you guys notice, I'm actually I've been putting comments on the screen. I finally figured out how to do that through Ecamm Live, Aaron, which Aaron put me onto. I don't even know how to use the StreamYards and the Zooms that all you kids use, but I appreciate all the interaction in the chat. I apologize if I don't get to you. Make sure you like and subscribe to this video. Just touching up on some notes as we get out of here, Aaron. One note I made earlier about personalities and how they kind of fit into things. That's what I like about Holland. I feel like Chimaev, my guy Brad Taschuk earlier in, I don't think he's sharing anything crazy out of school. Better if Chimaev looked like he tried harder for the weight as far as potentially fading him from a gambling perspective. I will say earlier in the week you had a better view being there, but he seemed a bit low energy, like he was having maybe a tougher cut, because he kind of does get like that when he cuts to 170. It felt like it was like that earlier in the week, despite his outburst moments that for the camera, obviously. Did you get any sense that he was going through it, so to speak, Aaron, through your best bet? No,
not nothing? Really. No, I mean, I wasn't surprised to hear that he was having trouble, because he's had trouble with weight before, but I didn't find that would have. I mean, I saw him in person. He looked big the other day, like yesterday when I saw him, but I mean, he always looked pretty big.
Yeah, I guess that was more one of the media days. It was very, which again, fighters don't like media, so a lot of them don't. So it could just be that, but a lot of times when they have really short answers, dry mouth, you could just hear the dryness when they're speaking, and they seem even extra irritable, which they should be irritable anyways, right? They're cutting weight. Obviously, it's understandable. Not hating. I was wondering if any of it was extra more than normal, because sometimes it's just normally like that. It doesn't indicate.
I don't think he enjoys the interviews. I think his answers are always pretty short. It's like, I'm just going to smash this guy.
Smash.
I'm just going to smash it. Well, what you think that this is? People want to watch the man get killed. That's why they want to watch me fight. I kill this man.
Yeah.
Do you see that Cormier? Do you see when Cormier added, like, he said that to Cormier, and Cormier's like, "Well, I don't know if we want to see people get killed." It's like, and Chimaev was like, "I kill this man, brother. I kill this man." And Cormier is like, "Once, have you noticed on broadcasts lately, people are like, I spoke to him yesterday, and he's willing to die in there, but we don't want to see anybody die in the cage."
Yeah,
like, it seems like every broadcast this comes up. Whenever the narrative of like someone's willing to die in there comes up, they're always like automatically defending the point against their own point. They're like, I spoke to him yesterday. He says he's willing to die out there. Both these men are willing to die out there. But we don't want to see any deaths in the cage. We do not want to see someone die.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. I will say though that the energy that he is spending, he didn't spend it weight cutting. Clearly, is what we're getting at here, folks. But he did spend it in other areas, and again, we've seen that before when people get out of character. Even the greats, right? That's always been like a thing. The weigh-ins or this or that, like they always act out of character before the big upsets. Ronda Rousey versus Holly Holm comes to mind, right? And we've seen others that I can't think of in the past too in men's divisions as well. And then on the other side, you got Holland, who obviously he's been getting popular for his crime fighting stuff, but I think that's just more of his impulsivity. I mean, the guy is a real fighter. Obviously, they're all real fighters and getting in there, but there's the martial artists, there's the more athletes, there's the more fighters. Holland isn't just talking the trash like Chimaev. Like, he is a real fighter. He doesn't have the most reliable process in the world. Again, he's probably going to get wrestled here, folks. I'm not, unfairly touting Holland and telling you to go empty your bank accounts or anything like that. Believe me, I'm officially picking Chimaev here. But again, like, Holland is a dude, when we used to interview him back in the day, Aaron, he would just give us, like, stories, like, without even asking, just like, oh, yeah, I messed this guy up at the club, was hitting on my mom because I was partying with my mom at the club. And, like, he just always was a part of wild events. Like, he will just put himself in there, mess somebody up, go dance, have a drink. This guy is just a born fighter, and again, I know that sounds really surface level casual talk, like, yo, he's a born fighter, bro. Mountains from Dagestan, bro. Using like those type of descriptors, but honestly, like, that's the kind of personality I would look for from, if you're looking for any type of edge here, as far as these volatile makeshift matchups. Like, I want the guy that is down to fight randos in the street and stop crimes randomly. That guy's not going to think twice about this. So, that just to wrap my note on that fight. And again, leaning toward Diaz for a pick, and leaning toward D-Rod for a pick as well over Leach.
Yes, sir. Yeah, I actually said to Kevin Holland backstage today, I said, there's a song called Big Mouth Strikes Again? I go, if you ever came out to that in the UK, you get a pretty big pop. He looked at me and he goes, I'm just going to come out to my own song in the UK if I fight there. Fair enough. I guess he's not a Smiths fan.
Yeah, I guess not. Shouts to everybody participating in the chat. I want to let Aaron go here, and I got to go write some articles. So, Aaron, was there anything that we missed? Anything this fight week that you think's pertinent to the audience you wanted to share that we didn't already cover?
Did you want to do a roundup of your picks? I know you mentioned off the top you're
sure
doing that. So, yeah, I mean, let's give the people what they want here, which is the Dan Tom knowledge. Let's drop some knowledge on these people. I don't even, looking at what's still left, I don't even know if any of my picks that I made for Diaz and Edge are even still valid. Like, I'm looking at, I had a lot of stuff on, like, fight doesn't start round 5 and Diaz Chimaev parlayed with things. I mean, I had parlays with Norma Dumont, but, like, I think the other side of that parlay is gone. I liked the value on Tony against Li Jinglang. That fight's off. Oh, I like Johnny Walker. Johnny Walker's plus 152. I think I liked him as an underdog. I don't know if you agree with that. And I don't think of what else, if there was anything else that I took. Not really. I mean, I think the Chris Barnett number is getting pretty big right now, but I don't know if I would take that either. But I liked Johan Linus. I think Johan Linus at plus 104. I think he's a solid underdog. We'll see what he's got, because he's a fighter that was pretty raw, and I think that he's learning a lot under the tutelage of Patrick Cote. So those are the two underdogs that are still left on the board that I like. Two different ones that I liked.
All right. Interesting stuff. Thanks for sharing that. Ghosted, I wanted to at least get one of your contributions. He says maybe the blonde hair Tony can do a blonde hair Brunson. I was thinking that with Charles Jourdain last week. Hey,
but Tony was the original blonde hair. Like, Tony did this before everybody else.
That is true. So that is very true.
Tony's not a follower. Tony's a leader.
Would cost you a fortune to mail it to England, Wes says. Yeah. I'll go over my plays real quick. Basically, and then we got the round robin man in the house too, Brad Taschuk in the chat, who I took one of his legs. Speaking of Dumont, I took Dumont actually. Jailman, the Jailman, baby, Pound Town, going to Pound Town. Sorry. I took Jailman, Dumont, Kate Collier, and I added the Leach when he was fighting Tony for plus like 129. Now that's adjusted with that Leach leg off. So now I don't know what it equals out to, but I put 1.5 units on it, thankfully, so I'm still getting a little over a unit return on that. My play on Erosa Duwadu doesn't go the distance, plus 111, 1 unit. So hopefully one or both of those hit, and that'll cover the silly exposure I have to Kevin Holland later in the card, who I sprinkled again, plus I think 475 half a unit, and then rounds 2 plus 2,000, 0.17, 17 ducats, 0.17 U. Round 3 plus 2,500, 0.17 U. Round 4, 0.7 U for plus 3,000. And then if you want to play Khamzat, I don't blame anybody looking at the round 2 plus 450 if he can repeat what Brendan Allen and cook him within 2 rounds. But if he doesn't do it in two or 2.5 rounds, Khamzat's going to get pretty tired. And if he shot his load there, and Kevin Holland will be waiting. He doesn't exert a lot of energy even when he's getting out grappled and muscled, right? He broke Derek. Speaking of Blonde Brunson, Derek Brunson's been in the UFC how long? He may have been knocked out a whole bunch, but he has not been taken down a whole bunch. And enough, you can knock people down, you can take people down, you can submit them. MMA fights, when people get tired, are crazy things, folks. And Kevin Holland's been there in the winning and losing ends, whereas Khamzat has just never been there. So yeah, rounds 2, 3, and 4 for that. For the round robin, back to what I teased with my man Brazchuk there. I took one of his legs, Dumont sub, because originally I had Holland round 1 when he was facing Rodriguez, Lee by KO when he was facing Tony, but those are off, right? I kept my Jailman under minus 169, under 1.5, so he just has to finish his pounding and pushing and whatever else he wants to do in there under a round and a half. I put Dumont by sub, which is plus 298.
I like Brad's thinking on Dumont sub round 1 at plus 1,100.
That is
some
crazy,
really strong value on that.
Yeah. I didn't put that one in there, but just the sub in general. She's got a rear naked choke in there. The prop that I'm on earlier, I wasn't going to add it since I was already exposed, but I'm desperate for legs here, right? So I added the plus 113 over here at my bookie of Duwadu Erosa won't go the distance. And here's my tentative 4th leg, Aaron. It's not a fancy prop. It's just Kevin Holland at plus 397, which isn't even a great number for him. But that's just, I need some kind of a long shot in there, and then Kevin Holland is a long shot in itself. And I'm thinking about doing those 0.17 unit 6 2-teamers. And if you parlay, the lot of what I just said, it's plus 6,606. 666.
Number of the beast.
Let he who hath understanding, Aaron, reckon the number of the beast, for it is a human number. Its number is 666. Sorry. Little Iron Maiden there. Maybe I'll throw that out. We'll get out on some number of the beast. Let me know what let me know in the comments what you guys think, what you guys are on. I wish you guys the best. Any words before we get out of here as we get some appreciations from the chat in, Aaron?
Yeah, just watch that Chimaev line tomorrow. I have a feeling it's going to go up a lot. So if you are still into betting on Kevin Holland, I think you should wait. That's my opinion. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I won't be. Because like I said, I think people are going to be looking for parlay legs, and I think people are going to just auto bet Chimaev. And that usually happens on fight day. So just keep an eye on that number.
Awesome. Ghosted just on the way out wanted to know, what's the argument for Tony? Because I don't think we really gave one. I will just say the cuts and elbows, man, whether Tony's losing a grappling match like I'm predicting, or he's winning by keeping it a strike by realistic path.
Listen, if Ferguson shows up and looks as good as he did in that first round against Chandler and how he has in previous fights, it could just turn out into like a stand-up fight, like a good stand-up fight that Tony just gets the better of. I mean, there's so many different possibilities in that fight. I just think this fight is kind of a guaranteed great fight. I don't see how this fight could disappoint, to be honest. I'm really happy that this is how things played out, given the circumstances.
Yes, Brad Tashchuk in the chat. The last question I will answer. The third leg was Jailton. In case anybody was confused, the third leg was the Jailman. It always is the Jailman. We need to, by the way, get a GIF of this scene from Half Baked where he's going, "No, Nasty Nate, no." He's got the calendar. We need to get like the Jailman have his own calendar so his opponents can count down the days until they meet the Jailman, Aaron.
Well, if you're gonna get locked in the cage with the Jailman, probably in for a bad day.
All right, folks.
That is his home.
Well,
the cage is the jailman's home.
Well, protect your neck and other places. Use the bite sticks if you must. Shout out to Brad Taschuk there in the analysis for having me on. Shout out to my guy TB Scouting, and as well as Guru Scouting, who's going to be joining me for the recap. So we're going to be hitting you a lot, keeping me busy working. I'm going to get to articles. Aaron's got some shopping to do, and for records and stuff, and some really cool stuff. If I got to blow up his spot. Aaron makes me jealous. He already outdid my record collection in two fail mail swoops here. This guy knows what's up. He's got great taste. So follow Aaron for his taste on mixed martial arts and other things at Aaron Bronsteter. Aaron, I don't want to take over your plugs. Plug on your way out, sir.
Yeah, it's just Aaron.report. And I owe you about 58 more hours of this, so feel free to have me on any time. I mean, you've been so generous to me on fight days that I keep an inventory of how much time I owe you. So. 50. I'm gonna bring over one of these records. Hang on. Let's see what we got.
I am the giving tree. That's the problem. I go and do, and then I have all these people that are awesome at what their job is, whether it's Eric Nixick or Aaron Bronsteter who offer their time. I don't take advantage. Woohoo! Yeah, I saw this one. Yes.
It's a Japanese jazz record called Midnight Sugar by the Yamamoto Tsuyoshi Trio. It's not available on the streaming sites. You have to get a copy, but it's a fantastic jazz classic out of Japan.
I looked them up just because of you. I saw that title. Yeah, fantastic, awesome. I can't wait. I can't wait to dive in. I can't wait. All right, folks, listen to your music. Keep your bite sticks close. The jailman's always a cometh. Good luck on your picks and plays, of course. And do I have any plays that I didn't give out? No, I gave you guys out what I wanted to give out, or everything I have, to be honest, at this point. What's left, I should say. So good luck on your picks and plays, and always protect your neck.